Well, warm welcome, everyone, and welcome back to Backhand Compliments. This season has, it's been run and done and won, and now it's time to sit here and talk about it, because that's the best part of playing Frisbee is all of the trash you get to talk after the fact about how you were right and how you were wrong. And, well, I'm Dan. Greedy, great to see you again, mate. How was Adelaide?
Adelaide, fantastic, mate. It was just a relief to go to a new town. First time in 15 years that it's been played there. Most of the players very positive about it. So, and it was the first time that I'd done a full ULTI.TV production.
Yep.
And I know you couldn't make it because you're just flat out at the moment, but it was a fantastic experience for me. I got to commentate with some legends like Moz, Blair Munro, Avril Tan, Simon Talbot. That was just a dream come true. But the production crew were incredible. They are incredibly hardworking. There before any player, leaving well after any player. Really dedicated, and then they're up just editing everything and getting it sorted during the night. So a little shout out to players to make sure you support ULTI.TV, and I mean it because now I'm seeing it from the other side. You know, for $15 you get to see the 14 games that we had to put behind the paywall. So just do that and show respect their dedication. They're not getting a lot of money out of this, but they're doing it because they're passionate about the sport.
Yeah, and I had a quick look at the stats, and the support has been really good. And thank you to everyone who's supported this. Like you've made it, you made it happen, really. So plenty of people have signed up for the AUC membership. It's still there if you want to go, and those games will be members only. So you can sign up, you can pay your $15, and you can watch some extra games. And there were some cracking games in the members only stream. I remember seeing a couple where, I logged into the ULTI.TV account just so that I could watch. And I thought that's the perk. And I had some serious FOMO, not being able to be there. I had some commitments that, a little bit pressing. And but I did manage to tune in to a couple of games, which was really, really good. And I managed to watch both finals as well. And both finals were amazing. And we're here to talk about the women's side of the draw. We're going to do one more episode, I think, for Backhand Compliments for the split gender season. And this one's going to be focused on the women's side of the draw. And Greeny, I believe you've done the slideshow today. After some minor technical difficulties, let's try it again, shall we, Greeny? I'm going to try it from my screen, and we'll see how that works.
Hey, we got it.
How good's that? Take it away, Greeny. The AUC Women's Wrap-Up for 2025.
Yeah, and I just wanted to shout out AFTA for putting on a great show. Sharon Buddy and team doing a great job, I thought. Sponsored by Discraft but also Caroline Cooper, who was the sports photographer who did the photography. She did a great job. And you'll see all the photos in here. Well, not all, but where they're captioned, she took those photos. So get on to see all the great photos from the event at her Facebook site.
And thank you, Carolyn, for letting us share some of your work, because there was some great snaps from the tournament. Let's talk about the overview. Great tournament, obviously. Elephant in the room. Ellipsis won again, but well deserved and a hard fought final. But tell us a little bit about it, Greeny.
Yeah, so it was a great event, and I think people really appreciated certainly Perth appreciated sort of being halfway across Australia, but just somewhere different. But also the main accommodation at West Beach being right next to the fields. Teams didn't have to worry about hire cars and, getting bums on seats to get to the fields. You could just walk over there. Appreciated that right at the beach. Lots of food options. So great from that side of things. On just a couple of minor things of the downsides, there was a lot of injuries. I tried to quantify that, but it was a bit too hard. It's hard to know, but I do know the women's game is definitely getting faster, stronger, and more physical.
Yep.
And if you look at the trajectory, I'm thinking here of, say, netball and how professional netball has become a lot more physical. You're seeing a lot more injuries as the girls get faster, bigger, stronger. Maybe we're seeing that, and something Karen Ma pointed out to me when I talked to her. And it was a very even field. So we had 18 universe points. So it was a very close competition. And I just had a look back. I wanted to see, well, what is the average universe point games? And you can see there that we, apart from 2017, which is the first year that we had the 12-team Div 1 system that was up at Gold Coast, they had 19 universe points there. But apart from that, it's been building up to 2023 when we had 16, 2024, 16, and now 2025, 18. This is across men's and women's, by the way. So I think there's a couple of factors there, Dan. One is the wind is an equaliser, so you get runs of downwinds, which makes games more even, but also just the evenness of the competition in the last few years, and that's really good to see. There's no easy games there.
Yeah, I had a thought, actually, trying to quantify how close is it. I think maybe, if someone got really excited, you could take the absolute value of the goal difference, and that could be a way of quantifying it as well. So if you just added them all up, instead of having, some teams at plus 19 and one team minus 19, if you just said they were 19 to 19 and then added them all up and then averaged that across the number of games, you might get also some way of quantifying.
I did want to do that, but it was way too much in way too short a time. So I just went for an easy number.
But it's an interesting stat, right? Like where we're talking about, okay, maybe 20% of games are being decided by 1 point. That's great. Love that. More of that, please. And curious to see what happens next year. We've had a string of, 17, 19% games but going to universe point. Like, all right, what's going to happen in 2026? Fascinating and potential for that to continue.
Yeah, and just to also highlight my first prediction fail, and that was that I said it's going to be hurricane conditions, going to be really windy back at West Beach, which almost guaranteed that we were going to get great conditions, and it was. There was a lot of, mostly the conditions were lovely, but there was that sea breeze, and it was onshore, and it was a sou'wester. So it meant that particularly fields 1 to 3, where we were filming, were side breezes with a bit of downwind.
Yep.
And that actually facilitated trap zones. And this is something I want to point out in the women's games as it's growing in its competitiveness and professionalism. But now we're seeing a lot of with the wind, we're seeing trap zones, 3 or 4 person cups.
Yeah.
And they're getting a bit tight, Dan. I think they're breaching a lot of the time. They're breaching the double team. But there's another factor too, because the mark is pushing into the cup, forcing the thrower into the cup. They're actually standing incredibly close. They're actually straddling, but the thrower doesn't know it because they're not looking behind until they go back to go for a dump.
Yep.
They're not noticing that, there's someone right there. I can't do anything. And they're going back to the cup. Now, interestingly, it wasn't happening as much as the men's game because the men, they've got strong hammers that get them out of those 3-4 really tight cups. But for the women, it did cause a lot of contact. And a lot of the time, to my mind, there were double teams.
Yeah. I'm remembering, late in the noughties when the Pommy, the 1-3-2-1, was the rage, and everyone was playing the Pommy absolutely constantly. And I remember there was a junior women's team that actually had a great deal of success at Worlds off the strength of their Pommy. But in ultimate, like every sport, there are fads, and I'm wondering based on some of the zones that we saw, is there maybe a return of the fad? Because there were some teams that were really, really effective at breaking that zone, and then there were some that were really ineffective. And they didn't seem to have a really good idea. And I think the difference was actually the handler play. Some handlers approached those zones very, very smart, and some were incredibly passive, and they just got smashed. And I'm curious, it could be an entire breakdown video, just you and I sitting here talking about the different approaches to zone, what worked and what didn't. But curious to see where that goes.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And the one thing I would say is that the teams that were struggling were also the ones very willing to swing it straight across to the downwind side. Like,
Too wide.
They don't get there.
Yep.
And suddenly they're on the sideline and they're in struggle street.
Yeah, too wide, too flat.
But yeah, look, it was, as I said, that was something I've noticed. And I think the women's game needs to clean up. There were pommies. It was the return of the pommy for a few teams playing that at this tournament.
It's a good defense, it's effective. And if teams are, they're not set up to deal with it, and pretty much the way you deal with it is play it in the middle of the field. Yeah, it's going to work. It's good. It's a good zone. It's time tested, and it crushes in particular anytime you don't have a strong overhead thrower. That's when it crushes.
Yeah.
If you can't get out of jail either with a scuba or a hammer, you will find yourselves in positions where it gets real hard.
Yeah. All right. Let's move on.
We got to keep this thing on track.
We got to keep this thing rolling. Can't get bogged down. All right. Yeah, just wanted a couple of photos, and this is from the men's div, but I just wanted to show this is what it was like at the fields. I like this photo because you're seeing a great play happening on one field with Outbreak and Sunder, but then straight across there you've got another field with another two teams, Chile and I-Beam, going at it. You can see the quality of the fields there. They were a bit soft, but they were really good. There were a few potholes around that probably needed. There was a few rolled ankles on the back of that, which is a shame. But overall, they were very good to play on. And you can see just random spectators, because there was sort of a boardwalk along there, random people stopping. And don't you love that in ultimate when someone goes, "What the hell is this?"
Yep.
They see the pace and the athleticism, and are just blown away, and they just stay and watch because they're like, "What is this? I didn't even know it existed."
Yeah. Legit play by Sean Davis. Holy smokes.
Yeah. Right.
That's getting after it there.
And one more photo here from Caroline Cooper from the final. And just I wanted to capture there the sidelines, the women's game. Everyone had finished by then, whereas the men's, there was still a women's round and bronze going on. You can see the Manly sideline. They had their men's, they had the Marlins there. So that you're not seeing many. It wasn't a great place to be as an ellipsis player to be there, but they had their sideline on the near side, and that was their safe place to go and support. So yeah, it was quite good, and it was a cracking final. We'll talk about that.
All right, moving right along. MVP Nana Kininucci from Kaos, scoring MVP.
I'm looking for the most contributions in the MVPs from any single team. So well done, Rogue. They had 10 players receiving MVP points. So my team MVP goes to Rogue. And Spirit, Brisbane Fuse, well deserved. They are very, maybe too nice, and that's interesting. That's something that we can talk about as we get to the teams. But they were a lovely team, but maybe lacking that sort of killer instinct.
Bit of mongrel. You want to cover the predictions next, Greenie? I think I've taken the title of Milk Boy. Some of my predictions were really, really off, and some were on. But let's run through it together, shall we?
Yeah. Well, the good news is that we were both better than the sort of the auto-generated. So Inside Out had their prediction for the final, and that was based on a whole lot of results and a bit of machine learning or something, some dark arts that I'm not sure.
Elo Greenie.
Yeah.
Good statistics. But doesn't kind of account for just the variation. It's it's very much based on, relative performance and averages, and like it doesn't really capture, things like, for example, Fuse doing, much, much worse than what we really expected them to. Like neither of us really thought they would be last, but here they are. They came last, and that I felt was really unrepresentative of that team, and no one picked it. I picked them for 7th, you picked them for 9th, the ELO model picked them for 6th, and then they just had a horror tournament.
Yeah. So my misses were, I really lent into Factory, having watched them all season. They'd beaten everyone once,
Yep.
Then also, Fuse, as you say. Whereas, Dan, we both got 18 lowest score wins in terms of the variation, but you had a lot more nailed. In terms of nailing the position, you got a lot more of those.
Yeah, complete fluke, mind you. Like, I don't think I've ever done that before in my life, and I probably won't ever again. And looking at it, I was like, yeah, okay. Like, I can see what I was thinking, but like I think through the midfield, and like this is what we were talking about, was it could have been in any order for about 6 teams. And you can see like your picks were off by about 2. Apart from Fuse, I was, 3 and 1. So again, we're seeing that real logjam in the middle where, what we were guessing hasn't really played out because, the teams have managed 1, maybe 2 wins more or less than what we thought they were going to. The notable exceptions, though, for me were, Fuse, where I thought that they'd be in that top 8, and it was not their year. And then the Sugar Mags, who, like, man, that was a horrific prediction by me. Like, it was bad. Having seen them at Gold Cup and then their performances through the season, like me picking them 12th, like that's some drugs, man. Like whatever I was taking, I was like orbiting. I was out there around the moon or something, because they were never, ever going to come 12th this year.
Well, to be fair, they never, and this is something that Kirsty Murray, the coach, pointed out, they never had their full team at any lead up. So this was the first time they had their full team. And as we pointed out in the previous show, they were going to do well in windy conditions. And it wasn't hurricane conditions, but it was just enough to help their big throwers. But, hey, Dan, we are better predictors than
the ELO model. Yes, we did it.
Right. We can beat the machines this year. And also, I think, as you said, it could have gone, there was so many close games. There were 18 universe point games, and we both got 18 as our margins. So there you go.
Next, we'll talk a little bit about Fuse.
Yeah, let's get into it. So
it was just not their year, was it?
It wasn't. And I've just shown their trajectory from 2017. You can see in the graph where they missed a few years sort of over COVID. Remember, 2021, they were all set to come down, and then they had a COVID outbreak in Brisbane, which smashed them. And now are just on the up there. You can see it's almost like they were going to reach their peak, and then COVID hit, and it really stuffed them up. So I think talking to Kat Perry, their coach, they were saying that they feel like there's a missing generation there, almost because of that. So they've got these young girls that are 20 to 24, and then they've got those mainstay players that were there pre-COVID in their 30s, early 30s now, and there was nothing in between. So, but I suppose the other thing that she said that, and it's the first time they haven't had Anson Chung coaching for 5 years because he's wrapped up in the under-24s. Of course, they're going to miss Kat and Clancy playing, two of the best players coming out of Queensland, both happily ready to bring more life into this world and more maybe second-generation players, who knows. But they were coaching this year, so I'm sure that really affected them. And you can see Dom Simpson, one of these now maturing players, but getting the job done. She's a big game player,
Yep.
but
And
also awesome to see Ellie Koenig. She's going to be gracing the under-24s. She was a captain for the team. She was picking up points, so she's there 4 from the left, and also Serena Tam there, 2nd from the left up the top. So, Ellie is 4 from the left at the bottom, and Serena's there, number 2 from the top.
Looking at their results, Greenie, like you take out the Mavericks and Asterisk, you've got a 1-point loss to Sugar Mags, a 3-point loss to Rogue, a 2-point loss to the Manly Marlins, a 1-point loss to GWS, and a 1-point win against Zig Theory. Like,
yeah, they were in it.
There's nothing in it.
No. The one thing Kat said is that she wants a bit more teeth and edge. And when you've got half the team is 2024, that's probably right.
Yep.
Remember that they didn't get a single lead in tournament. Once again, Brisbane messed around this time by Cyclone Albert, was it Alfred? But she said that their key moment was losing that first game to Sugar Mags on Universe. Now, when you think about it, you come down from Brizzy, you haven't had a lead in, and you're straight in, and it's a key game, and you miss out by 1.
Hard competition. Like the Sugar Mags this year, they were tough customers. Like you don't get to just kind of walk through that game. You're going to have to earn that one.
Yeah,
Next,
exactly.
Let's talk about the Manly Marlins.
And this is so I had a chat to Taz Anderson, who's the captain coach, and she would have loved to have more wins, but the improvement from the start to the end of the season has been immense. And they got their first win at Canberra Cup. They're against Sugar Mags in a really tight game. And you're looking at that rough start, but look at it, Kaos by 1. That's so rough. And we filmed the Blaze game, and that was a good game. They were in it. They're only missing out on just a couple of key moments. And that's the thing, right? When you're a young team like that, it's those 1%ers that you don't have. All their skills are great. They're good athletes, but they're going to miss out on the 1%ers, and that's often the difference in the games when the quality is so good.
And the comment was that they wish they won more games, but I was kind of thinking, like, in the grand scheme of things, this is just to make the Mavericks stronger. You win, you lose, you draw. That's not really the benchmark for this team. And I would say that the Manly Marlins season was highly successful because they went to nationals, they were competitive, and they brought on their new players, their young players. So, massive win for them. And look at Anson Chun in there, like the infiltrator. We just talked about him not coaching, and he's in the Manly Marlins team photo.
Yeah, he is, but that's because there are a number of under 24s in there, and he was helping him out. But also the Mavs were there always helping out when they could, when they got on the sideline. Just to highlight the 2 main handlers, so Amber Richards and Meg Lee. Amber Richards, we talked about. She obviously cleaned up on the MVP points. She's the touch thrower, and we pointed this out in Gold Cup how good she was. Boy, all she needs to work on now, I think, in the off season is just getting her body strong and strength and conditioning. She is going to be definitely a player of the future. Meg Lee, man, she has presence. I'm becoming a huge. She's like, to me, the next Caro Ma. In terms of ways I like to watch. She's mercurial. You got to watch her. She's quite tall, but she's a handler. She's got very powerful flows, but she's so nonchalant. She will just catch things one-handed without thinking about it. See options, hit options. Absolutely fearless. I mean, she's got this presence about her. You got to watch her. So those girls there. Now also Emma Spears has been did well on the MVPs. She's under 24, coming out of Wollongong, and she did really well for them in the deep spaces.
Cool. Next, GWS Blaze. I mean, we both picked them about where they came, and I think that Betty Tan 41 on the MVP probably speaks volumes as to the losses that they've had, because in years gone by, it wasn't that condensed in terms of the standout players and the people getting the MVP scores.
Yeah.
They 10th, and you can see that their results over the last, 6-8 years have been a precipitous decline, and it's a challenge. They've got to figure it out. They've got to figure out a way, because it's a great club. They had a lot of success, 2018 when they came second. That was a cracking season. Really awesome season, that one. But since then, they've really struggled to come back and achieve those heights again.
It is, and they've had incredible roster changes over that period, and they've had to deal with the rise, of Ellipsis, and then Ellipsis splitting their teams. Then Manly and Rogues also going from 2 teams to 1. So they're getting through all of that. But yeah, the key. So I talked to Kaos here, Kristen Mortimer, the captain. She felt the key moments were those first 2 universe point losses. That pretty much ended their chance of making quarters. And that's a really, such a tough way to start that. And you could see that kind of threw them off through the Friday and Saturday of the tournament. But their big win, against Fuse, that was a cracking game. That was definitely their highlight. Betty Tan still getting it done. She's still athletic. She's still got great game IQ. She's going to be managing the Stingrays, so she'll be straight, focusing on that. Sam Ramsden is a young player, tall, good receiver. And then the Sano sisters, Sano Mordan. They're fantastic little receiver handlers. They get so low. They're the sort of knee on the ground flicks, when you got your pivot foot knee on the ground and throwing them, and backhands as well. So, Charlotte Kong, can I just shout out, you've got to watch her on stream. She is a fantastic receiver. I've got to know her over the season because her fiance, Sean, was my teammate this year. And Sean, mate, I can tell you've got an absolute precious gem there. So don't mess it up. Don't mess it up, boy.
There you go.
So, yeah, and she is just mercurial and always with a smile on her face. And Mon Cheng, we've got a little photo there, her snippet of her in classic layout pose. She likes to break on her face. And, she's breaking bad there. But she was also... She's very hard on herself. I talked to her halfway through the tournament. She said, I'm having a terrible tournament. I said, that's not what I'm saying. And I got the confirmation from Kaos that she's way too hard on herself.
Yeah. Significant extra doubt there. I don't know. Mon Chang is just a class legend at this stage and does so much. I think one of the notes there, Greeny, that you gathered from Kaos was that Mon Chang just does so much, not just on the field, but off the field as well for GWS Blaze. Next, Zig Theory out of South Australia. The home team, they had a good year. They improved on their 2024 result of 10th, came 9th. Some good things for them.
Yeah. They the home team, so you want to put on a good show. But they just had a rough start, and I've thrown up the graph there. Now, obviously, they've been in and out of Div 2, and just... So you can see that number 1 placing. That was 2022 when they were erroneously, I'll say, put into Div 2 and absolutely cleaned it up. I just wanted to sort of highlight that. But that was a Div 2 win. Since coming back to Div 1, it's been a rough ride, but they've dealt with a lot of injuries and people moving on. But, yeah, they needed to beat the Sugars. What it came down to, because of this bad start, they needed to beat the Sugars by 2 to progress to the quarters. So that was the key game. And that was covered by ULTI.TV. But they had just come off a universe loss to Brisbane, right?
Yep.
And that had gone overtime. So they had like 10 minutes to prepare for this key game. And also, obviously, I've got all this intel from Nick Footer, the coach. She said that, they put obviously a lot of energy to try and secure that win against Brisbane. Whereas the Sugars, were blown away in their previous game, and they had like 40 minutes to prepare. So it was tough. Little shout out here. What kept Zig going, I can tell you, was Karen Hatch. She's the lady on the left there in the pink. Now, legend of the South Australian team. She is a professor of geology at the University of Adelaide. I'd known her as a geologist before I knew her as an ultimate player. But she loves ultimate. She loves the team, loves the girls. She was there with these incredible spreads on tables for their lunches, just getting all their water and just being the support person for the team. Shout out to Karen. Love your work. Quickly on the MVPs, we talk about best names in the men's division. In the women's division, I'm saying Hannah Crockett-Nanny. Fantastic name, fantastic player. Man, she can move. No one could really shut her down at all. Such an incredible mover. Anna Rosler, of course, Firetail, been doing it for years. Sarah Middleton with all with the game-breaking throws.
Mm. A great year from them, and looking forward to seeing what that'll look like moving forward, because the spread there in the MVP is really good, and it's not the same old either. It's not Sarah Middleton, Anna Rochler, or Alex Pilar-Rogers topping the charts. It's a new name, Hannah Crockett-Nanny. So next, Kaos out of Western Australia. Nana Canucci obviously scoring 42, taking out the MVP of the tournament, and congratulations to her. Well done. An 8th place finish for Kaos. Your thoughts on the team from the West?
Yeah, talking to Lee Baker, the coach, he felt that they were in every game, but the parity in the division was awesome. And you look at their start, 2 Universe Point wins, were obviously key. But
That's clutch. That's clutch.
Yeah, absolutely clutch. Again, here's another team that really benefits from a connection to Japan and Japanese players and Japanese style. So I'm loving seeing that in women's ultimate. I think always good to win your last game and to sort of get over Factory in that last game was fantastic. Where I think the key for them, personally, is the Brereton sisters and Jen Woods, just these level heads, experience, knowing what to do in big games, and that I think was really good for them in their 3 wins.
All right. I think that's really all there is to cover for them. Let's move right along, keep this train on track. Factory, an interesting old season for them. And I actually think that your graph is wrong, friendo. I think, didn't Kaos come 7th and Factory come 8th?
Yeah, there could be.
Anyway, moving right along.
What I would say, Dan, definitely a downward trajectory for Factory, unfortunately.
They're trying to come back, like 9th in 2023, 8th last year, and then 8th again. They're still looking for those pieces. And they do have some really good pieces to the puzzle. Caitlin Grange and Bronte Sleeth, obviously, played very, very well. And were rewarded with, lots and lots of MVP points. They got work to do. A little bit more consistency, I think. And they're going to... they're going to be right up near the top. But you can see that there is a bit of a gap between, say, Factory and those top-tier teams of, say, Rogue and, a 15-11 loss to Sugar Mags. I would have thought that game would have been closer.
Yes.
Wasn't? And
well, that was a windy game.
You got to say that you got to perform on the day, don't you? Like, we can talk about paper and theoretically and all of that, but at the end of the day, first 15.
Yeah. But, what we noticed during the season and why we predicted them higher was when they're on, they have got great connections through the midfield. They look really solid. Resets are good. But that loss to the Sugar Mags to me summed it up. Just they were not great in the wind, and it's the same for the men's team. So this is something that both the men's and the women's can really focus on to get their precision up in the wind. But they've got, they had a lot of injuries. They had to bring in Dana Warlock, as well as Needle in from Div 2 to bolster the troops. And so, that was a tough run. But yeah, it was those first couple of losses again, especially the one to Spicy Chili. That was the key moment for them. That's the one that they really wanted to win. Instead, they went to 0-2. They then had a great Friday and caught up, beating Kaos, Blaze and Marlins. But that put them into the quarter against Rogue, and Rogue's a bad matchup for them, especially with a bit of breeze around.
Next, Sugar Bags, or a bunch of badass bitches,
Yes.
as you've called them, and a great performance, a really special team for the Sugar Mags. This is a team that had real iron about it. It was a tough and it was a gritty team.
Yeah, well, and hey, that wasn't me putting that sign on that. I asked for a team photo, and they wanted to put that one up there. So, you know what I love about that team photo? It's the only one that goes into portrait. Okay, and it's because they're so tight. It's such a tight grouping. They are only 16, so it was only a small group, but they're very tight. Great vibes in the team, and just so happy for them. They did so well, and set up by that Universe Point win. As bad as it was for Fuse, as good as it was for Sugar Mags, meaning they just had to beat Zig Theory in that final round game to get the quarter spot, which they did, which was predicted in the original predictions. And having looked at,
it's a good example of win the right games and you end up in the right spot, because those are unflattering scorelines. 15-3 to the Mavericks, who came second, 15-5 to Asterisk, who came third, and then 15-2 to Rogue, who came fourth. That's some brutal scorelines. However, the key games were the games against Fuse and Zig Theory, which they won. So they find themselves, okay, we're in the quarters. All right, it's Ampersand. We do the best we can, 15-8. Okay. But then they turn around, they beat Factory Flash, 15-11. They were a gritty team. They just got the job done.
well, during that run of losses, Mavs, Asterisk, Rogue, in the Mavs game, Kirsty Murray got concussion. She had to go off and she sat out. And then, almost like a sympathy injury, Britt McCarthy started getting symptoms of concussion. So she also sat out. So they sat out those games. And obviously, in a team of 16, when you got two of your best players go out, okay, that's hard.
Yep.
Little shout out to Annabelle Balassa, who's the legs on the team. She's so quick, great receiver, really nice mechanics on the throws. She's going to be playing blue bottles this year. She was unreal.
Next. All right, it's Spicy Chili. Really an upward climb for this team. They have been going from strength to strength over recent years and went one better. Well, actually a couple better, but coming fifth, just outside the top four. And they're not too far away. They've really found some excellent talents, this Spicy Chili team. And I believe you caught up with Mish Phillips a little bit and found out some inside goss.
Yeah, she said that the order of play helped them. They were still a bit scratchy at the start, but then they just got over Blaze. And then they caught Factory coming off a tough game. And as it turned out, that was such a key game for both teams and their fortunes. But I love the photo. Look at the photo, Dan. Look how freaking happy they are.
That's a fun team.
It's a fun team. And
you'd like to play with them.
Yeah.
You'd love to be on that team. You can see what a great time they're all having. I don't know what's happening in the middle with like the hands and the stuff, but there was clearly some sort of in-joke that will probably carry over into the next season for them. And interested to see how they go because, you know, they're not relying on the same old. They've found new talent, and that talent is performing at a very high level. So fun times for them.
But just to point out too, this is their last year of their 3-year program. So they're going to reset once again, and Mish Phillips won't be at the helm. She'll be helping to guide that. But that is going to be led by players like Tash Langston and Julia Kabai, both blue bottles. And Mish was so impressed with how their leadership, being so young, but taking on this team and leading them so well. So, yeah, that was really cool.
Rogue, top 4 finish for the girls in pink. Your thoughts on this Rogue team? Like, we knew they were going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
And they just hadn't shown it up to Nationals. They show up at Nationals and they show it.
Yeah, well, we can see there one of the reasons that's Alex Ladamatos as coach. Don't want to put, he's coach, so we don't want to take away from the girls, but he was excellent. But also shout out to Kat Ashton, who's been a longer-term coach for Rogue, takes the defensive side. She couldn't make it to this tournament, but she's also been really key for the girls. As we said in the preview, they're best when they play fearless and feisty. And whenever I saw them, they were doing that. But also the care. I did cover a few of their games, and there's this care factor amongst the group, which is really cool. If a player, something happens, they missed a D or something, the players really get around them. And I think this really helps them as a team. This is why they got the team MVP, the most contributors, getting recognised by the other players than any other team. This is a tight-knit group. Shout out to their shirts too. I really like the pink and the blues there of Rogue. They sort of nailed that. Now, Charlotte Owens. So we know Maddie Owens. This is her sister who's played a lot of high-level hockey. And she comes in and is just cleaning up in the end zone. She's a tall girl. She can read it well. She's got that sort of elite sporting mindset.
Yeah, the sporting genetics in that Owens family, pretty good.
Yeah, but then we also in the preview pointed out Eunice Chung and how important it was for her to play a role and not lose faith that she had to do everything, And she played she had a really, really good nationals. She was just so even, like she knew when to strike and when not to. Really mature performance for Eunice Chong. But it just shows you how good the rest of this team is that Angela Pigeon only gets 3 MVP points. She was absolutely key to them as an offensive outlet and a defensive receiver. But also Eliana Rico, the Colombian star, she was also fantastic for them. She only picks up 1 MVP shout. And I've put in there, while this was all going on, do you recognise the girl in the top right corner there, Dan?
No, I can't.
Okay. So that's Christine McBride. Now, She is from the Rogue Club, played for quite a few years. While Nationals was going on, the 1% Club was aired, that sort of TV show. I didn't know anything about it. Scott George alerted me to this. That, hey, Christine McBride is on and she wins the show, right? And 1% Club, where you've got to answer questions that only 1% of Australians have been able to answer. And she got this wicked, cryptic question that she's got to answer in 30 seconds to win almost $100,000. And she does it.
Yeah, right.
While Rogue are doing it on the field in Adelaide, one of their alumni is doing it in the quiz show. So shout out to Kristen.
Well, congratulations. That's an achievement. The 1% show. Haven't heard that one. That's kind of cool. Let's move right along. Ellipsis, Asterisk, 3rd place for these guys. They lost in the semi-finals to a really strong Mavericks team, and a Mavericks team that had Kaya Weir at that stage. So 15-9, a comprehensive performance. And Ellipsis, this is a bit of a hot take, right? Ellipsis aren't the same Ellipsis that they used to be. And I think that there is coming a time where they need to go a B split, not XY, because the other teams in the country are closing that gap. And I think that you can see they're not as impervious or bulletproof as they once were. This Asterisk team, losing to Rogue in pool play, that's something that was unheard of for Ellipsis in past years.
Well, interestingly, that result there, which was their worst result, that actually prevented an Ellipsis semi-final.
Oh, that would be class.
So in the end, now I'm not saying that they didn't throw the game. I mean, Rogue had a really good game, but it did set them up for 2 shots at Mavs, right? And they lost both those contests. So talking to Karamar, she did recognise that was the worst Lippy result right through their history. Okay, but at the same time, she really appreciated having 2 cracks at Mavs and very happy with how they played in the bronze. And she wanted to shout out. So we look at the leaderboard there and the MVPs. Abby Liddell, the Kiwi import, was everywhere, mainly receiving and getting blocks, but also great throws as well. Oh, the G, Georgia Even Griffiths, I commentated a couple of the games. Man, she's still got it. Oh, her touch throws in the breeze are just spot on and just lays it on a platter for receivers. Jess Parks, she is a warrior, Dan. Like
always has been.
She always has been. But to see that, be there and see that in the flesh, watching her just throw a body on the line and under the bus and over the top and on the ground. Yeah, and just getting up and keep going. I was just super impressed. And, of course, my girl, Karamar, I just love watching her play. She had a special connection to Alicia, who she, for some reason, is just always able to find. And whenever she's got the disc, she could have thrown it into 50 metres in the air and Alicia would have come down with it. And also another shout-out, Tracy Chong, who blew me away as well, and also our commentators. Just her presence as a handler and her patience. And, she was really good. Also getting open as a handler, especially in Manly in the bronze game.
Mm. Next, we'll talk about Manly Mavericks. I hate that I was right. I hate that they came second. I hate that. Yeah, I hate it because they were so good, Greenie, and the loss of Kaya was critical. She dominated. She dominated throughout pool play. She dominated through the knockout games, and then copped an unfortunate injury. And the game, like the final we had, right? And we'll talk more about the final, but it was an excellent final, and the Manly Mavericks were so good.
Yeah. They were talking to Di Warman, the coach, one of the coaches with Nikki Shires. They were frustrated. They 100% believed that they were going to win, right for the season, that this is their year to win. And now when you have buy-in like that, and you lose a close final, of course, it's frustrating. And, but they brought it in tight after that final, and they're in their team circle, where they were just sort of talking it all through. That lasted well after, this is after even the ULTI.TV crew had packed up. They were still there in the circle on the finals field, just feeling, the whole season and the moment. So huge shout out. As you say, Kai Weir, all of the Ellipsis girls I was talking to are just saying they can't wait to play. Well, sorry, the Ellipsis girls that are in the Crocs cannot wait to play with Kaya as soon as she gets over this hammy injury and gets back into it. I can't wait to see her at World Games and what she can do. Holly, those two were just incredible. But Maya Millick as a handler, that really impressed me. She's a journeywoman. She's played in a lot of different scenes, was in the Eurostars team back in the day, but she's excellent.
And Greeny,
Hannah Gregory, I'm going to be playing with at Terrigal Towel tomorrow. I hope she comes because she's in my team. So I'll look forward to that. And of course, we can't go past Sarah Winky Wentworth. You know, she's reached the half century, Dan, and she's still doing it. You know, she was the best player during the noughties, and she's still bringing it to the big games in 2025. Incredible.
And Evelyn Ha was also a revelation for the Mavs. And Mei Lee regards Tang as well. Her contributions, especially in the semi-final, were key. They were critical. And she was just out there getting the job done. And it was wonderful because this was a really, really strong team. And you can see the dominance as well. Like, they scored 15 in every single game. Like, as a scoring team, hang on. Like, strap your boots in because, like, we're going to 15 and we're going at a quick rate of knots. Holly Reeve just... At this point, it's criminal that Holly Reeve hasn't won a national title. At least I don't think. Someone fact-checked me on that. But that is... that's a wrong that needs to be rectified. And hopefully the Manly Mavericks, along with their sister team, the Marlins, can pull it together and use this loss as fuel to go one better next year. Let's move on to Ellipsis, the champions. And I mean, you just can't go past them. They were the best team. They beat all comers. They didn't lose a game. And in the final, they earned it. They got nudged, right? Like the Mavs gave them a good old nudge, and Ampersand, they just stood strong. They weathered the pressure, and then they got the break back, and then that was it. The game, like Cat Phillips just took over down the stretch, and game, set, match, and, you know, just everything you would hope for out of the championship winning team.
And just looking at the leaderboard there on the MVPs, Alex Patterson, she obviously a vital and an excellent player. Even in the final there, she had an early clutch play where she got up and got a D on Kaya Weir. Now, Kaya was a bit out of position, but I reckon any lesser player, Kaya would have somehow found a way to have caught that, but not with Alex Patterson there. Dorothy Lee coming out of Mondays was the fittest player on the Mondays, and she was unstoppable as a receiver. And it's interesting that the two receivers are getting, the big gongs. But to me, Cat Phillips, wow, she's looking good. She was unmarkable. As good as the Manly girls tried to put a mark on her, she just could get the disc whenever she wanted. Clutch throws. She's looking really fit, really good.
And we saw that in the final point, Greeny. Like, we saw 3 switches where Cat Phillips threw the pass, moved. The Mavericks called a switch. There was a new defender on Phillips. She threw the pass. She ran on. The Mavericks called another switch. And even with, having 3 switches, they still couldn't stop the passes. It was just like, I'd never seen anything like it where I was sitting there and I was thinking, the Mavericks need to stop Phillips. They got to stop her. They got to stop her. And I was seeing the switches and I'm like, there's a switch. There's another switch. There's another switch. They still can't stop her. And then she throws the winning goal. And I was like, yeah, well, there it is. Like, at some point, you got to figure it out.
Yeah. 2 more shout-outs for the final. I actually thought Alex Prentice, she'd been away on holidays and not really around much. But she came back in and she was clutch as well. She was copping a lot of heat and, getting bashed around a bit, would just dust herself off and throw goals for fun. Her experience, along with, Kat's brilliance, are going a long way to winning that. And Kim Marsh, the British import, I thought she did a great job on defence in that final as well. Really made it very difficult for the Manly girls.
Well, talking about the final, what are your thoughts?
Well,
Like
okay.
this is like the behind the scenes, the stats screen, Greeny.
Yeah, this is actually the stats screen, which I've just screenshot straight out of Commentary Source, which is what ULTI.TV uses. We were very fortunate to have a rostered off commentator who would run the sideline, do the stats, and give a couple of sideline comments. You can see here, obviously, a Manly going 2-0 down. And, Kaya at this point wasn't having her best final. She had a couple of turnovers. She missed that one in the end zone, albeit a great Patterson defence. But you can see that gain for 3-1 there. Oh, so the point for 3-1. That was a grinder. Look at the number of passes and turns there, and it falls the way of the Amps. So that was key, to getting this 3-1 lead and then 5-2. So that's the sort of starting point, and the nerves are all over. Now the grind is on, and they get it up to 8-6. So they peg it back a little bit, and then 8-7. But look at it, gets to 10-all, Dan, right? But then there was a change there. So the experience of Ampersand to just change it up and take a little bit more time, take the heat out of the game, bring the momentum back into their favour. That was, I think, the coaching of Amanda Fung, and also just the leadership of the Amps were able to control that moment, which could have gotten away with them because the majority of the crowd, of course, were either Manly or they wanted to see someone else win other than Ellipsis, which is fair enough. We all go for the underdogs. But they controlled that moment with just experience and poise, and that was the difference. And then it was sort of traded out.
And I'm just noticing, like, the number of passes. There's a point where there's 16 passes, 14 passes, 22 passes, 11 passes, 12 passes before they turned it. Like, this Manly offense could move the disc, just based purely on the numbers. And you can see, like, by comparison on the other side, like, the number of passes for Ellipsis, much, much lower. Like, they didn't have... Well, they had one. They had 1 point where they threw more than 10 passes. So that, I think, if you want to draw conclusions, either Ellipsis are more direct, or the defensive pressure from Ellipsis caused the offense of Manly to throw more passes, or they were more indirect anyway. Like, there's a lot of things you could kind of draw from that, and it's fascinating to see how, like, the game played out, because I would say that it was always in Ellipsis's control, which is their MO. That's what they've always done. They always control the game. They control the tempo, and they just play from a position of strength. Like, that's their thing, right? But you look after halftime, the Mavs are right back in it, 9-all, and then they go ahead 10-9. And that was the moment where the game was there to be won. And you think, okay, we've just played, like, what, 60 minutes, 45 minutes, and we're at 10-all. All right, it's now game to 5. And in that game to 5 to win 5-3, like, that's just Ellipsis. Like, it's just strength. It's, convert a D point and then hold it out. In fact, they converted 2 after that 10-all mark. So I think takeaways from this, Greeny?
Well, funny enough, they've got quite a lot of young players on Amps, right? That are coming through, but you would have to say the youth and inexperience is still on the side of the Mavs, despite having a good run in nationals over a number of years. But they're starting to step up. Hannah Gregory had a great game. Obviously, Jenny Wu, and also Who else was there? Oh, Sarah Wentworth getting 2 blocks was clutch. So she's still doing it, but so they'll learn. They're going to keep going up. They're going to bring some girls up from the Marlins, no doubt, because they were just so good. So they're going to rearm and reload and come back just as hungry, which is maybe to your point that watch out Ellipsis for the return of the Mavs. But look at on the flip side, just the control there of these incredibly experienced and talented girls on the Amps. Kat, 7 assists, a block, a goal. And where's Prentice? Well, Dorothy Lee, 4 goals and an assist and a block. Prentice, 3 assists, 2 goals and a block. Yeah, they were clutch. Tactically, I think the backhand force from Manly, I wasn't a fan. I did talk to Di about it. They had their own reasons. Other forces weren't working for them in previous games. But on the downwind, when they were going downwind with the backhand, it was just so easy to shape the throw over the defenders. And Manly, unfortunately, gave up the front cone on the backhand side, on the downwind side, way too many times, including the last point. And meanwhile, on the upwind, sometimes it's good upwind to be throwing into the wind because the shape of the disc will lift. That's what you're aiming for. But Kat Phillips is such a great thrower. She made clutch backhands into the breeze for goals or near goals that were mini turning points in themselves.
On that, I think, you look at the two teams, and Kat Phillips with 7 assists. That's a lot in a game where you've only got 15 points to throw nearly half of them through one player, and that's what I said. She just took over. She took over the game, and she was unstoppable. And the question is, all right, what do you do about it? And I think they need to go back to the drawing board. And I think Evelyn Ha might be an answer there for the Mavericks. She was an absolute revelation. Loved the way she played. Who knows? It's all yet to be written. Greenie, before we wrap this thing up, I'm going to stop this sharing so that you and I can just talk. Any closing thoughts from the women's side of the Nationals for 2025?
Oh, great to see it back to 12 teams. It was 10 last year. The rise of our own Sugar Mags was just so great to see. It was, but the parity in the division is great. I worry about, as they're getting stronger and faster, I don't want to see more injuries. Of course, that's I don't know what you can do about that, but you can prepare for it. And doing something about those trap zones that are I think getting too double teamy. Things that looking forward to. But in this rivalry, watch out for the Mavs next year. Ellipsis.
Well, on that note, we're going to wrap it up here for today. Greenie, thank you for joining me. I hope that you've all enjoyed us breaking down what was the women's side of the draw. We'll be back with the final episode for the split gender season for Australia. It'll be episode 6, and we'll talk about the men's side. So make sure that you subscribe. Make sure that you turn on the notifications so that you know when that goes live, because we'll be back to talk more garbage and more smack about Ultimate Frisbee in Australia, because we love doing it. So we'll see you again soon.